you were saying about how they present the game, but translating over to the actual gameplay itself, it's like if you have a trailer that is that out there, when you go into the game, you know, let alone even just watching the trailer, Embark have to talk the talk, right? Or walk the walk, whichever way you want to say it. The trailer specifically has to match what the gameplay shows you. And in my opinion, it does. I don't know obviously what your thoughts are as well, Rockhound, but do you think that Embark do kind of have that like transition from, you know, the trailer matches what the gameplay is trying to perceive? Because you might have some games that, you know, they kind of fluff up the trailer. For example, we've seen many times before where games have that little text at the bottom and it's like, you know, this scene is not indicative of gameplay, right? And it's like it's these fancy scenes that are made, and yes, sometimes they look beautiful, but when you hop into the actual game, it doesn't reflect obviously what the developer is trying to sell you in the first place. Why should you play the game? And like I said, obviously, Rockhound, what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I think that it really does portray the chaotic nature of the game pretty well. Obviously, the trailer has that intensified a bit more than you have in every moment of the game. You know, they're not just going to put you running across the map into the trailer. But as far as thinking about the themes of the season, I really like that they are very defined. And I can imagine that we, you know, down the track, we could look back and talk about a particular season and how we liked that season 2 was all about, you know, kind of the love letter to retro gaming that the Embark team call it.
And about what you said, Fixie, on the developers, you know, whatever the phrase
whatever
is.
the saying is,
Yeah, whatever the saying is, but, you know, putting their money where their mouth is. I remember the first time I watched the alpha trailer, I was like, I need to play this game. It immediately drew me in, but I remember then playing the closed alpha, and I was like, you know what? This has some bugs, but it felt like it felt on the trailer. And that was one of the things that I always looked forward to. Like, can this game be what it looks like? And in my opinion, back then it did, and it still does. Obviously, there's some downtime when you're playing, but those majestic, you know, moments that you know that you're playing something truly special. It's been there since the beginning, in my opinion, and that's why I've kept just coming back to the game. And every time there's a trailer, I know that whatever I'm getting on the trailer, I'll get some of that, if not all, when I play the game.
You obviously speaking earlier a little bit about like the nostalgia, like, oh, we want to look back to previous seasons and kind of think like, hey, like I really loved this part of the season, or I love this entire season, or I love this era of the game. For me, when obviously I now have the opportunity to talk to you about Easter eggs, one of the biggest things that I looked back on when I was younger playing games is I did kind of follow Easter eggs too, but it was mainly in Call of Duty Black Ops. So my personal favorite Easter egg, I don't know if you guys have heard of this one, but was the one on Moon. Basically where you would have this zombies map, you were on Earth, you could then teleport to the moon, and then after doing this kind of long run through with your friends, you then uncover some characters, you play a bit of Simon Says, and then eventually it leads into being able to launch rockets on the moon that would basically take off, land, or just basically take off and blow up Earth. And you can watch that happen, you know, as you're playing. And, you know, from having that as Easter egg as a kid playing the game, it blew my mind that was like, you know, in the game, that you could blow up Earth, right? And obviously, you know, it's like, it's the inspiration, right, Rockhound? I mean, obviously, I was going to ask you about the Megalodon Easter egg, obviously, in Battlefield 4, but, you know, what, like, initially sparked your interest into like, covering the Easter eggs, right? Was it from the finals, or have you enjoyed finding these kind of secrets in other games before?
Yeah, I have. So, I didn't do a whole huge number of Easter eggs in Battlefield like some people did, but definitely towards the end of Battlefield 1, there was a Fort DeVoe Easter egg, which actually kind of led on to not the trailer for Battlefield 5, but it kind of released when the trailer was going to be released from memory. And that Easter egg, like, I was actively working with some of the Easter egg hunters trying to solve it, and I think I was like the last person to get it wrong. And I was literally standing in the Fort DeVoe room when the guy that got it right. And having that moment, you know, when you actually solve something, And at that point, there was an extra part to it that led on where there was Morse code, and you could figure out the link to Battlefield 5. Those things actually speak to probably almost like those childhood interests and like treasure hunts and things like that, where you go and search for something and are persistent enough that you can actually find it. I think there's something that appeals to most of our inner child that makes Easter eggs fascinating and interesting.
I've got a big question for both of you. This is a big one. Well, it's not big, but it's a very controversial question. Does AI ruin the lore or Easter egg experience for you guys?
Well, I can go first on that one.
Yeah.
I have
please
tons
do.
of yeah. So my stance on AI is that I don't like it and I don't support it when it comes to this level of employing it. So I don't like that there are voice lines in AI voices in the finals. I don't like it. I've said it to the team. I've always encouraged them to just be upfront about it when the whole debacle appeared on Twitter. Mainly because I am a creative myself. I work in creative design. I've worked all of my life on that, whether it was hobby or professionally. And the gaming industry is, it's very deteriorated in that sense. It's always looking down on creative people, independently of what they do, like whether it's a voice actor, an artist, or a game designer. It's always we're always looking down at the creative side of people and the value of human action and human art. And game design is art at the end of the day. Every single piece of it outside of management is art. These are people pouring their hearts out and the creativity to create something special and to just put it out there for someone else to enjoy it or hate it. That's art at the end of the day. So my stance is against AI. Now, I understand why Embark did it. They've been open about it. And I put my pitchfork down when they released that statement saying, hey, we've done this ethically. Like, we've hired voice actors that are working with us, plus internal people that helped us create these voices. And they've been trained ethically on these people. So I put my pitchfork down. I was like, okay, fine. At least they're doing it ethically in that sense, right? Supposedly, which is fine.
I was gonna say for Rockhand as well. One of the things, obviously, that it's just for both of you. But one of the things I noticed that when I would join into the practice range, initially it was June. It was like, "Hi there, I'm June, one of the commentators of the show," and that sounded alright. Like I was kind of like, is this AI? Like it kind of sounds like it's AI, but it's probably an actor. And then in like the next update, she said it again. It was like, "Hi there, I'm June, one of the commentators of the show," and I was like, "Yeah, that's one." Like they've made it worse, and it's like 100% AI.
Yeah, in fact, I was in the practice range today, and I noticed that June's voice sounds different, and it's almost like when you watch a TV series or a Netflix series or whatever, and they have to change an actor because either someone passed away or they just decided to leave or whatever. It's never quite the same, although sometimes you get used to it. But it feels like that at the moment, that I can't really feel attached to who June is because she kind of has changed her voice a bit, which is kind of what Spear was saying before. I guess the only unknown is, maybe there's more of a reason why this is the case. I mean, perhaps June and Scotty, perhaps neither of them are real, in which case maybe it really makes sense that this happens. I think most people prefer to get to know a character, like you were saying earlier, Spears, that you get attached to characters and you either dislike them or they become someone you want to, get the better of or see not do as well or whatever. It becomes a really emotional thing, and it's hard to do that when their voices are changing from time to time.
Yeah, I just want to add as well that we do know that AI voice acting is not the end game on Embark's side. They've been vocal about that, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on how that turns out to be. Whether it's that they eventually transition into full voice actors that become these characters or create these characters, which I'm honestly hoping for, because one thing is for Scotty and June to be AI because they are, let's say, theory-wise, they could be AI in the lore. But you can't tell me that every single CEO and every single contestant will be AI in the lore, right? Like, that's just like, come on. that's not it. That's not true narrative.
That doesn't build character.
Yeah, that it just goes against the narrative they're trying to build. Because if you're basing...
Does it really, though? Like, I just want to interject here. Think about the Matrix. Like, the other side of it is that it's all machines, right? There are no real people in that.
True.
Yeah,
so
I
maybe
guess my
the whole,
argument
maybe the
would
whole
be,
other side isn't real.
Yeah, my argument would be that, okay, fine. One side is completely AI, but your entire... I guess I would not prefer if that would be the lore, basically. What I'm trying to say is that if you make your lore, all of it, be machine-driven or AI, once again, we have no connection to that. How is that lore gonna, how is that gonna live beyond gameplay? It won't be, and in my opinion, it would be perceived as something very cheap to do in terms of like narrative storytelling, right? You can't just cheat your way into storytelling by saying, oh, all of this was a dream, or all of this was AI.
So essentially, you kind of want something to happen, and I think Rockhound, when you were obviously discussing it a bit earlier, you were saying, season 3 might start to kind of kick off with something. Season 4 will then start to have like the battle, for example, and then season 5 might be like an aftermath of that. Is there anything like you're particularly like paying attention to in that realm?
If it was me writing it, I would be much more about developing the characters behind the sponsors and the finals side of the world. So, we've kind of got this glimpse of, almost as Spear was saying earlier, this glimpse of what CNS is, albeit, a kind of an unclear one. But we already know some of the character names from the sponsors, but we don't really know anything about them. So. Yeah. I would like to see season 3 really starting to make us feel like, okay, we're starting to get to know what these sponsors are, how they connect to one another, and then that kind of sets up, your two main characters or groups of characters, CNS versus the sponsors.
How do you think that could be done in game, or how could that be done from the player perspective?
I think the thing really is that the lore developing like this, and this is kind of something I covered in my most recent video about the art influences or creative influences on the game, is that the lore is actually allowing Embark to develop the game in directions which were probably unexpected. So for instance, this current Cis Horizon map, probably most people wouldn't have expected that initially, because we were looking at iconic locations for arenas. But eventually those iconic locations would get kind of stale, because it's just going to be, okay, now we're in Paris, now we're in Sydney, Australia, now we're in New York, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then each season you would just be going, okay, well, where's the next location? But now we can have iconic locations, great. They can still be those really cool locations. We can have more kind of hacked maps in the middle, and then potentially we could have something we don't even know about yet. And then the lore kind of falls right across that as well. So
I've seen some things, but I haven't heard much of it. But if I'm not mistaken, the current theory is that we're actually inside of the universe of Arc Raiders, and the finals is kind of an offspring inside of that universe, of like a game show within the real world of Arc Raiders. Is that correct, Rockhound?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe it, is that Arc Raiders is potentially part of the meat space, is kind of how the theory goes.
Really?
I haven't created a video on this because I was sitting on the fence for quite a long time. And I have seen some good videos out there, and they give pretty good arguments about why they think Arc Raiders is part of the finals universe. But my feeling now is that it probably isn't part of the finals universe. And when it comes down to it, the main reason is actually from a business point of view. Like, it would be Embark putting all of their eggs into one basket lore-wise. And, we don't know if the finals is going to be super successful forever. No, I mean, exactly. No one, And so if they tied them together and then one of them didn't perform, well, what does that mean lore-wise? Do you suddenly cut off one arm of the lore because it's not there anymore? Or, in addition to that, I think that it's kind of an older trope now, if that's the right word. Like, it is kind of a Matrix type trope. And from what I've seen is that while the Embark team are inspired by things like The Matrix and Lost and Westworld and so on, I think they wouldn't play it that safe just to go, here's an obvious link that we can make, let's just make that link, and it kind of ties the story up nicely. I think that would be almost a disappointment in a way.
This is something that I've talked with Rockhound behind the scenes, and we both agree on this point, and I just want to expand on that because I feel the same way. I remember the first time I saw Arc Raiders and the finals. That was the first theory I had because I come from Apex Legends, and Apex Legends takes place within the Titanfall universe. So for me, it was a natural connection to go, oh, what if the finals happens inside of Arc Raiders? Just like all the stories and shows that Rockhound has referenced, that's how the story is. So for us to objectively say, oh yeah, for sure, the Arc Raiders will be within the finals, or vice versa, it's just way too thin. And it's not, in my opinion, just objectively speaking, and even from a storytelling perspective, you wouldn't want your newest game to, off the bat, be tied to an IP that you haven't even developed, or even it's not public, people don't know about it. It will be too much of a mess.
Shout out to Rockhound and Spear. As always, guys, thank you so much every single day. What have I done to deserve this? And I hope this is a cool, unique, look into something else that we don't talk about. We never talk about lore on this channel, right? So, the outro. My name has been Thix, and as always, I'll see you on the podium.